Welcome to Reddit After Hours. This is r/today I effed up, where OP goes to a swingers party with their boss's parents. Our first Reddit post is from Goodest Gounet, titled, Today I effed up by letting my boss find out that I had passionate hugging with his parents. So I, a 23-year-old female, and my partner go swinging and frequent BDSM and passionate hugging clubs. It's just part of our lives and something that we enjoy. Now, very few of the people in these clubs I have ever seen in the quote, wild. And I keep that part of my life very separate from my work and my regular daily life. I don't keep it a giant secret or anything, it's just more the relationships are separate. Usually at these parties or clubs, you begin getting a circle of people who, vibe with and who share the kinks and whatnot that you do. For me, this has included a couple that's in their 60s, who I actually have a lot of fun with. We have been to their place a few times where they host these parties. Well, this morning, while I was at work, I was talking with my partner on the phone about the couple having invited us over for a party this weekend. I just said something like, Sue and Lewis is hosting this Saturday. It's at their vacation house at such and such time. I didn't think anything of it, and I didn't think to lower my voice because I wasn't saying anything explicit. Well, my boss overheard me and said how that kind of sounded weird because it sounded like they were going to be at his parents' house, which obviously couldn't be. I kind of laughed it off, but he seemed weirded out. Now, he doesn't share their same last name, so I figured, okay, they can't be related. Well, this Saturday, we went to the party at Lewis and Sue's. All was good and fun, but then a car arrives in the driveway kinda late. There are maybe 10 people here at this point doing various stuff and all naked. There are toys everywhere and adult videos on the TV. Lewis and Sue just go, oh crap, and put on their robes and try to rush cleaning up because they recognize that it's their son's car in the driveway. Most of us aren't super drunk, but we have had a drink or two, and not everyone is getting the message of get up and start to act normal. We are trying to hide things and stuff while they talk to him at the door. We are all obviously caught, but in our slight drunkenness, we thought we had a shot at playing it out cool. Anyway, we hear this guy, who we just know is their son, yell the most heinous things at his parents and how disgusted he is. I actually recognize his voice and I peek out. Now, don't judge me, I wasn't thinking straight. And of course, he saw me, and I quickly try to hide again. To be clear, I did not know they were his parents. He yells out my name and says that he will see me Monday. He rushes out and he drives away, in very dramatic fashion, in my opinion. Lewis and Sue were honestly very chill about it. I guess they don't have the best relationship with their son to begin with. I don't really know, to be honest. They said the main reason that they were so panicked at first was because they thought that the grandkids would be in the car. He apparently took his wife's last name, which is why I didn't think that these were his parents also. Guess we will see if I still have a job on Monday. So, some of this isn't relevant to the story, but it's a bit of tea, and I am a lover of tea myself, so I will share some here. I have talked to Susan and Lewis in person today, and they were both very apologetic about this whole thing, which honestly, I felt like I was the one who should be apologizing. So it turns out that my boss had cheated on his wife several times and that she then cheated on him in retaliation. She apparently cheated with one of my boss's paddle friends, which is someone that he was very close friends with. Just super messy stuff on both sides. Sue and Lewis told me that they haven't had a good relationship with him for probably 5 years or so because he also did some other stuff with finances and or savings and caused a lot of family issues. I'm not going to share all the details here, but it's really messed up. He apparently blames them, his parents, for this thing that happened and is extremely upset that they didn't want to pay for him to get out of it. So they have both talked to my boss and his wife, and they are still furious, and apparently my boss wants me fired but doesn't know how to do it. And his wife is honestly just a crazy grunt. She thinks that I had passionate hugging with her husband, which I haven't, and his parents, guilty as charged on that one, to get back at her. Get back at her for what? I don't really know. I've never actually met her. and she thinks that I'm behind their money troubles. Don't know how that's possible. She also thinks that I manipulated them into a quote sex cult. I have contacted HR. Like I said, I just said that it was a get together and I didn't really share any of the other details about it. And the company has told me that he essentially can't do anything to me. I have also been told that I can move to a different part of the company if I ever wish to. I have everything from his wife saved too, just in case. They're both very conservative and religious, which is also part of why the family doesn't talk to them much. Other than contact with the grandkids, his family doesn't really talk to him. His wife is convinced that I have slept with her husband, and I don't know how she got this idea. It's all very messy, but I don't think that it's actually really about me, just rather them being toxic with each other. My boss has also insisted that his parents stop the parties and especially stop being with me and my boyfriend, and that we all cut contact. Neither me, my boyfriend, nor Sue and Lewis want to cut contact. We have fun together, and I don't see why we should stop just because they want us to stop. It's not like we will tell them or him or anyone else what we're doing anyway. Sue also made me a lasagna to bring home so we, quote, didn't have to think about food when we had this stress on us. She is literally the sweetest lady. I feel much better knowing that he can't do anything and that I will still have a job where I feel safe to go to no matter what he decides to do. OP, at the end of the day, all of this is kept completely separate from work. You are free and your boyfriend and his parents are free to do whoever, whenever they want, and they don't need their son's permission to do it. And that's actually comical that she made you lasagna to take home. Like, hey, I know my son's all pissed off at us, but hey, great passionate hugging today. Here's lasagna for the road. But in all seriousness, if he did try to fire you for some bogus reason over this, you might just have a really expensive wrongful termination lawsuit on your hands. So document everything, OP. Our next Reddit post is from Tanny Chaff, titled, Today I effed up by forgetting that Reddit is only as anonymous as you make it and blowing up my relationship with my family over it. For context, my childhood was exceptionally isolated. When I was about 5 years old, we moved to the top of a mountain in the middle of the desert, probably because my parents wanted their eventual 11 children to grow up free and wild, but also because extremely traditional Catholicism tends to stick for children when those children have absolutely no contact with reality. We would descend the mountain for church on Sundays, and then, once a month, we would join other Catholic homeschoolers for a morning at the local park. And some years we did 4-H. But that was about the extent of my socialization. I was unhappy, but I was never quite sure why. And my parents were always very quick to explain that my unhappiness was a result of the devil or a, quote, spiritual attack. Now enter the internet, the glorious, populated, community-filled internet. As an older teen, I began doing some classes online and got an eventual brick of a laptop to help me with that. And naturally, I eventually found Reddit. Finally, I had a place where I could have a community with other people and no one would ever have to know that I was an awkward homeschooler with a terrible long skirt and an awful haircut. I started in the Catholicism subreddit and tended to keep it open in one page in case my parents walked in, but then in another page I could explore. Oh, the freedom of exploration. I learned history and science. I joined fandoms and discovered podcasters. I learned interesting terms like bisexual and even saw adult videos for the first time. And I talked to other people who weren't homeschooled, sheltered, or even Catholic. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I said a lot of BS. For the first solid, 6 years or so that I was here, I was drinking the Catholic Kool-Aid hard. If you look far enough back at my history, you'll find a lot of homophobic, transphobic, religious, bigot posts. Honestly, a lot of cringy stuff. I also had a habit of occasionally complaining about the things that my family complained about, especially as I began to realize just how desperately abnormal and unhealthy my childhood was. Words to the wise kids, don't post your family drama on your main subreddit page. it will eventually come back to bite you in the butt. Eventually, with time, love, and joining the real world, I grew out of that cringe. I left the Catholic Church once I finally realized the depths of its misogyny, racism, and corruption. I realized that the fun word bisexual actually described me, and started meeting with other queer people and found out that they were not the depraved predators, but honestly the warmest and most loving bunch of people that I had ever met. I learned the real truth behind all the quote pro-life things that I had been taught. I read books about abortion and trans rights. I connected with people in my town and then started to do in real life things once COVID ended. And now I volunteer at my library every week. I realized that I'm not broken and I'm not disgusting, waiting to be saved by an angry God. I made real friends and really learned to love myself for the first time. Now, here's where I may have messed up. I made the catastrophic mistake of posting a picture of my sister's wedding on Reddit. You would think that this was nothing. I thought it was nothing. But my sister's ex, who has been involved in a decade-long custody battle with her, did not think that this was nothing. In fact, he somehow managed to find the post and then from there find my Reddit account. And then boom, 10 years of content. Homeboy must have read through thousands of posts and comments. He found ones where I complain about my childhood, talk with people about how my family is still conservative when I've gone to the liberal dark side, weird poems and fights with my sister that I wrote at 18. He went through posts about my struggles with my fertility and struggles with religion, and he entered those screenshots as evidence, as proof that my family was not fit to be around the kid. By the time I had been told what had happened and told to delete the posts, it was already too late. My dad had the screenshots, and then he went and found more. My whole family saw them. My grandparents called and texted in horror. My aunt across the country was also dragged into this. The next thing I knew, I had text after text from my sister telling me that I needed to make a statement that I was a psychotic lunatic and lying about all of it. My mother apparently wrote a statement for me that basically said as much. According to another sibling that saw it before she tried to make me sign it, that's what it said. My sister claimed that she wouldn't get custody of her kid back if I didn't either claim psychosis or sign a statement to that effect. Because I know that this is perjury, though, I did not sign this and I did not make this statement. Because, see, I'm not a lunatic. I'm not an idiot who overshares on Reddit. And I've been diagnosed with depression, like who hasn't, but I'm not psychotic. I ended up writing my own statement, basically laying out all of what I just said. I said I was a sheltered kid who used the internet badly, and some of what I had said online was said without the full knowledge of their respective situations, but that my mistakes were my own. And because my sister had been adamant that I needed to call myself psychotic, and my mother had already written something for me, I thought it best to send this to my sister's lawyer directly so that nothing could be added or amended without my knowledge. This was apparently an even bigger mistake. I woke up to an email from my sister about how she can't believe that I would imply that I don't trust her and how I'm going to die alone without any friends or family. She's going to paint me in court as a psycho anyway because only a crazy person would talk to a lawyer in a legal situation instead of the person who already seems to have had plans to make you perjure yourself. Yeah, because that makes sense. My whole family basically hates me now, and that's kind of the end of that. Now, all in all, you might all agree that losing my family is no great loss. And really, it's not. But no, friends. The real loss here is my Reddit account. 10 years of karma, 10 years of relationships, and carefully curated content. I'll have to start all over with a new account, with hopefully a much more anonymous account this time around. I'm torn between never touching this account again and using it as my new erotica account exclusively, since I now know that my father will be looking at all my posts in disapproval anyway. I might as well lean real hard into that. OP, if I were you, just as a little bit of petty revenge, I would absolutely keep the same Reddit account and absolutely lean hard into it like you were just saying. I'm sorry about your family, OP, but it kind of sounds like they never really had your back to begin with, from, keeping you down with all this really toxic religion stuff. And that's not to say that religion is toxic, right? I have a lot of friends that are like real religious and stuff, but like obviously there's those people like your parents that take it to the extreme and try to shelter their kids and kind of bully their kids into doing what they want by using religion. All I can say is, OP, I'm glad you got away from it. I'm glad you learned to love yourself. That's great. Our next Reddit post comes from Anonymous Mouse, titled, "Today I effed up by making my coworkers think that I was eating my deceased cat." So, a bit of backstory. I've been living in an English-speaking country since I was maybe 10 years old. My accent is 95% gone, and people who meet me generally don't realize that I'm not a native speaker. But once in a while, I'll mispronounce something or use a word wrong in a sentence. This is kind of what led to this mess up. So, unfortunately, my cat died yesterday. She was my baby, and I miss her very much. I can barely function without randomly bursting into tears. I took off work yesterday so I could grieve and bury her in my yard under a bench that we used to sit on and watch birds in the summer. I thought that she would like that. My sister stopped by to console me and brought me a homemade meal. Despite it being delicious, I could barely eat, so I saved it for later. Today, I had to go to work, so I packed the rest of that dinner for lunch. When I came in, my eyes were puffy from crying, and people were asking me what happened, and I explained to them about my cat. During lunch, I was heating up my food, and a woman that I work with asked me what I was having, and I responded with the remains from yesterday. She looked disgusted, but I thought, whatever, maybe she doesn't like to eat food from a previous day. A few hours later, though, I get a call into HR and was told that my colleague would prefer that I didn't eat house pets in the shared dining space. I thought, what the heck? I was so confused, then appalled. Why would anyone think that I was doing that? I was going back to all the conversations that I had during the day, and at no point did I say anything about eating pets. The HR lady let me go, but then a few hours later called both me and the woman who watched me heat up my food in the lunchroom. That's when it came out that I said that I was heating up, quote, remains, which I meant leftovers, and my coworker assumed that meant that I was eating my cat and eating it due to some mental breakdown that I was having. F my life. I do know what both words mean, and I know that they're not interchangeable. I was just not thinking clearly, but despite my explanation, people are still giving me crazy looks. OP, I really don't want to laugh because, of course, I'm sorry for the loss of your pet. Losing a pet is like losing a family member, so, not trying to make light of that. But I can only imagine the look of horror on this lady's face when you said the remains of yesterday and she thought that you were eating your cat. I would look horrified if I thought someone was eating their pet. So definitely not a funny situation. I'm sorry for the loss of your pet, but kind of a funny story. Our next Reddit post comes from Fire55X, titled, "Today I effed up. The drunk text that went to the wrong person. A cringeworthy mistake that I'll never forget." It was one of those nights when the drinks were flowing and I was having the time of my life with my friends. After a few too many shots, I felt the buzz start to set in. Feeling a little more tipsy than I thought, I took out my phone to text my boyfriend. I had been missing him all night and wanted him to pick me up. The message that I had in mind was one of those sweet, flirty ones that people send when they're feeling a little too free with their words after drinking. I typed out, quote, "Pick me up. I want you to hug and kiss me all night. I'm so drunk. I really want you to kiss me so bad." Now, the thing is, I didn't realize that in my drunken state, I had completely messed up. As I scrolled through my inbox, I had assumed that the last message that I had received was from my boyfriend, but in reality, it was from my dad, who had asked me, "What time will you be home?" I hit send, and as soon as the message was sent, a sinking feeling washed over me. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed with a reply, and I looked at the screen and saw that the last person that I ever wanted to see messaged me, my dad. His reply was simple, but it was enough to make me wish that I could disappear. He said, quote, "I will pick you up," in all caps. Suddenly, my heart dropped, and I swear I felt like a cold bucket of water dumped all over me. I couldn't believe it. How could I have sent that to my dad? The words that I had so freely typed to my boyfriend were now in the hands of my father. I sat there in complete mortification, frozen, praying for the ground to swallow me whole. In that moment, all I could think about was how I could possibly explain this to him without wanting to crawl under a rock and never come out. My mind raced, and I just knew that this was going to be one of those stories that I would never live down. When my dad finally did show up to pick me up, I couldn't look him in the eye. The awkward silence between us was deafening. I was dreading what he might say or do, but thankfully, he didn't even bring it up. Still, I knew that this was never going to be the same. My dad was now the keeper of an extremely embarrassing secret. On the bright side, OP, that might have turned out better than you thought. Maybe your dad realizes, hey, I was young too. Kids are going to do what kids are going to do. I was kind of like that at that age, so no harm, no foul. You might have gotten lucky. Or he might be saving this as an embarrassing story to use on you in the future. Only time will tell, OP, but for now, sounds like you're safe. That was Reddit After Hours, bringing you r/Today I F'd Up. Thank you all so much for listening, and if you like these stories, like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below for future Reddit subs that you'd like us to cover, as we post new Reddit videos almost every single day.